morning once again. We're getting unplugged right here on Tech Leaders Unplugged, and for another episode of tech-themed conversations. And I'm joined as ever by my fellow teammate and co-host, Wade Erickson. Thank you, Wade, for being here with us today. And of course, our guest. We're going to be speaking with Charles Payne, the CTO at Neptune Media. So thank you, Charles, and thank you, Wade, for being here today.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to this conversation. So let's start with you, Charles. Tell us a little bit about you. Your background, your story, how you got here. Anything you want to say about yourself.
Well, I won't be too boring, but I've been in cybersecurity for roughly 25 years. So I started out back in network security, back when we just had firewalls and physical appliances, and we moved and we migrated all the way to now what we call today cybersecurity. So I've been here for the journey. It's been an amazing ride, and can't to see what we've got in store with AI and machine learning. Trying to see what the future is going to hold for us.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Charles. So how about Neptune Media? What was the genesis, the aha moment that you said, well, we got to create this? Tell us a little bit about your journey with Neptune Media, please.
Yeah, so Neptune Media was actually born out of me complaining to our board about how much we've been to all of these other executive events, and I measure my own personal return on my investment by return on my time. So I measure based on how many relationships I can build, how many connections I can establish, and moving forward, basically how many partnerships, because I want to partner with the vendors. I want to partner with the partners and the sponsors. I want to create some type of relationship and create some type of momentum and try to become some type of build or design partner moving forward so we can build better products together. And I found that going to some previous events and some other summits that were available, I really couldn't achieve that goal. So the vision with Neptune Media was to really help build out those relationships on the vendor and executive side.
Oh, are you on mute, Carlos?
Yes, I'm sorry about that. Yes. Okay. So thank you, Charles. So now let's move on to today's topic. Okay. As chosen by you, we're talking about securing tomorrow, today. So we're going to be discussing or exploring cybersecurity's cutting edge. And so that leads me to the next question, Charles. So tell us why you think this is relevant for today's day and age, please.
So we already know that reaching out on social media, and people don't check their LinkedIn as much as they used to. And then you've got the news feeds that always scroll. Building relationships really help build out the necessity for the community to grow. If we look at, comparative to where we are today and what we want to have in the future, we want to integrate new technologies, want to integrate machine learning, AI, and all the other cool buzzwords that people can think of. But at the end of the day, when an executive hears someone say artificial intelligence, we already hit the PS meter. We're already like, wait a second, you guys are just hitting me with buzzwords. So when you really think about securing tomorrow today, it's really one of those things where it has to be like a planned approach where you're actually not trying to hit every single word that your marketing team's giving you. You really have to have some type of fundamentals and some type of grounding into what you're really talking about. And that's, I think, the basis of what we need to do today, but to help us for tomorrow.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Charles. Wait, I know you have some questions for Charles, so do you want to take the mic?
Yeah. So we talked a little bit about how marketing and sales are challenged today with social media that used to be kind of the darling channel, I don't know, a few years back when LinkedIn was somewhat new. Email, of course, had its day, and spammy and all that kind of stuff is largely shut down that channel. And even though we have the phone, a lot of people won't pick up the phone if they don't recognize the number. So that channel is struggling, but is still very effective in my experiences. Tell me about the event model. There's events and marketplaces that are kind of really driving the back to face to face outside of the channels, phone, social, and email. Tell me a little bit about the advantages of your events and a little bit how they're structured to help salespeople and vendors to meet the buyer.
Yeah, absolutely. So our sales approach is significantly different than most. We don't do any of the speed dating or lightning rounds with our summits or with our events. But what we do is we do executive dinners and executive lunches and breakfasts. And our whole purpose of sitting the executives down with the vendors and the partners and stuff for an hour and a half or 2 hours at a time is so they can really build those relationships. We already know that if we go speed dating, we go see 50 vendors as an executive, we go see 50 vendors, we spend 10 minutes with each person. We're never going to build a relationship. We're not going to create any value for an executive, obviously not very much for the vendor either. Yeah, we might know who they are, but we might not want to talk to them again because maybe we had bad interaction. So our focus is spend an hour, spend maybe two, but actually have that ability to build that relationship, build something that's a little bit more than superficial, build an actual hard connection with somebody. So you actually have that ability to pick up the phone and call them. So now they recognize your phone number. Going back to your point, Wade, like, yeah, if I don't recognize the phone number, I'm not going to answer it. Absolutely. But now you know who I am. We've ate dinner. We've had a couple of drinks. We already know each other. We've exchanged phone numbers. I'm naturally going to answer your phone call because I know who you are. You're already in my caller ID. So that's a little bit more of what our business model does as opposed to some of the other ones. Our business model is focused on building an easy transition from advertising and marketing to actually sales. Ours is focused on the pipeline.
So I know that the cybersecurity is one of the summit's focus. Tell me a little bit of, is there more outside of cybersecurity that you have a focus for the vendors to be able to meet the executives?
We do. So we actually focus on three main areas. So we focus on artificial intelligence, machine learning. We also focus on cybersecurity, obviously, but also FinTech, so financial services, the financial industries as well. So we focus on those main three areas.
And when you have events, do you split those three into different events, or are they blended and you kind of sign up and a little bit of matchmaking goes on based on the focus, even for companies that maybe have both cybersecurity and AI in their delivery and services?
Yeah, great question, Wade. So we actually blend them. So what happens is you'll have different tracks that have different things, but you can also cross-pollinate. You can also cross the tracks over if you want to. If you want to go some stuff that's AI and some stuff that's cybersecurity, you can definitely do that, or vice versa. And you also do some fintechs, or you can mix all three of them together if you like to. Yeah, everything overlaps. Everything's also going to be recorded and broadcasted, so everybody that's registered also will have the ability to go back and replay it.
What kind of trends are you kind of seeing at these events that the executives are targeting, looking for vendors with a higher interest or frequency versus the traditional cyber, like firewalls and networking? Obviously there's lots of vendors that do that, but a lot of things are like looking for open source code in your code base. Those kind of things are a little more on the edge of some of the services folks are providing in this area.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, even GitHub's got like an SBOM thing where they'll actually go back and they'll review some of your code. I think their product's called Copilot, if I remember correctly. One of their products. So there are a lot of different things that do that, but I see more along the lines of everybody freaking out right now, or maybe not freaking out, but given extra money and they're given extra budgets, or sometimes a little bit more flexibility with buying stuff that's artificially intelligent or machine learning based, just because it's what we see on television, what we see on the news all the time. And sometimes our board's a little bit more generous for some of the stuff that's new because they're afraid about being left behind. Like right now, it's kind of, I don't want to say an arms race, but that's essentially what it's turned into. It's like everybody's fighting for what's the next version of machine learning, what's the next version of the AI, machine learning combination. It's turned into, funny enough, kind of like I guess it is like an arms race, because everyone's like, everyone's trying to one up the next person. So it's like you've got one person that's got AI, one person that's got AI plus ML, and then it's a never ending battle. I don't know how long it's going to go on for, but it's kind of amusing to watch.
Yeah, we've seen that before, obviously. I remember back in the days of RPA and automation for robotic process automation, and there was a lot of hype around that 8 or 9 years ago. And although the technology is very advanced and very solid, it just didn't seem to penetrate the way I thought that it would. And I'm thinking, AI and machine learning is in this hype stage right now, although very powerful. I mean, I think a lot of us have already seen some advantages there, but I think to meet the like you said, the return on investment, there takes a lot of intelligence to apply artificial intelligence, right? And I think that that's somewhat we're missing in the business, is the people that can be the solution architects. It's kind of like software developers right now. Where the power is going to be is the AI enabled software developer, where you can actually do the work of 2 or 3. So that means they need to learn even more. They have to have intelligence on top of the AI on how to apply this. And I just think this is somewhat of a trend we've seen in other technologies that I think is going to fall in the same rut that AI machine learning is that the technology's there. It's just the people that are having to apply it aren't there, So what are your thoughts on that?
True, yeah, absolutely. So it's like I actually at our last summit that we had, which turned into executive dinners, actually was meeting with the CEO of a company that actually has a sim that they built out, and it actually uses machine learning to see everything that happened, and then it cross pollinates with MITRE, and then it writes you all of the TTPs and IOCs that are required. It actually does a SOC 1 and some of the SOC 2 level analyst job. And then it spits it all out for you. And then it says, this is how you remediate your firewall. This is how you remediate on the infrastructure. I'm like, this is amazing. And it uses machine learning for that. I'm like, this is amazing. Because now I can, repurpose my SOC 1 and some of my SOC 2 level analysts to go do something different, because now the software is doing it for them. Now the system's building it out and doing it for them. So I think what we're seeing right now is there's a lot of hype, and there's not a lot of activity that's going, because everyone keeps saying that they're using artificial intelligence, when in reality there's not very much cognizant being or cognizant stuff that's actually artificially intelligent. It's more along the lines of machine learning and modeling, but we get caught up in that overhype with the marketing, going back to what you're saying. And it's like I tend to turn a deaf ear to when someone says artificial intelligence, only because I know that they're probably not using those terminologies correctly. So it's going to boil down to, and going back to what you're saying about RPA is actually rebranded itself with what we now know as no code, low code. So it's coming back, but they're finally starting to go through the same cycle or cyclical cycle that machine learning and probably artificial intelligence will do, as they go through this whole we made all these mistakes in PR and marketing, and now we're going to go back and rebrand it and do something different. I see that happening with RPA now, this whole no code, low code thing, where it's the same thing. You just drag the box and you still do the same thing RPA did, but it's got a new catchy phrase, no code, low code. So I think it's going to hit one of those rebranding type of scenarios, where we finally catch up and realize that we over publicized something, we made a lot of mistakes, we over promised, under delivered everything, and then we're just going to go back and rebrand it.
Yeah, we'll have to probably categorize things a little better, because AI is such a wide, as well as machine learning, is such a wide topic area. I think we'll start to see some specialized definitions around that, so people can actually, one, talk more intelligent about it, and two, specialize in this very vast area that generically, I think, no one company can do it well across the board. It's so vast, right? So whether it's the verticals of applying it into education technology, where they're it's learning on the child, right, as they're interacting with the courseware, and it's adjusting the courseware on the fly for the students. So you have unique learning experiences for every child in the platform, right? So it's things like that. Tell me a little bit about your background. So you said 20 years, 20 plus years you've been in this space. There's a lot of folks that are now coming out of college, and cybersecurity seems to be one of the few areas that is not getting outsourced and offshored. as much as some of the other tech areas. What drew you to that as a career path when you were in your early days?
Yeah, so I'll admit, I actually lucked into cybersecurity by accident. I didn't actually set my hopes and dreams to go do cybersecurity. Actually, I went to school for law. Decided I didn't want to be a lawyer, and went back to computers and technology, something I was passionate about and I loved. And then the industry actually just evolved over time into what we now know as cybersecurity. So I mean that's how I got my start. My background's not in IT. I don't have a computer science degree. In fact, I've got pre-law degrees and such. I studied psychology in school. I didn't study computer science and all the other stuff that everybody else is doing these days. So my background's a little bit different. It's unique because my background's also in finance. So I bring three things to the table. So I love GRC from what I'm doing based on my previous backgrounds as well as my financial experience. So I actually do a few different things. So there's different types of CISOs, as you probably know. There's a business-oriented one, and there's technical and practical, and so on and so forth. So I kind of blend both skills of the technical as well as the business side, and that's I think where my strong suit is. But for someone coming right out of school, someone that's in high school, or someone that's in college that wants to do cybersecurity, that wants to do something IT, that's a really broad question. I'm not going to be the guy that just says go get certs because I don't think certificates are valuable in everything. They have some purpose, but I don't think they're valuable for everything. It just depends strictly on what you're trying to do and what you're really trying to accomplish. If you want to be a programmer, obviously you don't need a cert for that. If you want to be something in government where you need like a Security Plus or a CISSP, then that's a different story. That's going to be a requirement based on a contract. So I think someone coming out of school they really need to ask themselves what they like to do, what their personality likes to do. Do they want to sit in front of a screen and program, or do they want to be out talking and meeting with people, maybe in a different role? So those are always fun leading questions. In fact, I mentor a lot of students when I was teaching, and it's the question they used to always ask me, "Hey, do you think I can do cybersecurity?" And my answer was always like, "Absolutely, I think you can do everything." But the question is, what do you like to do? What are you passionate about? Because that's where people are most successful at, is whatever they're passionate about. That's when they're able to pick up and they're able to absorb a lot of information really quickly, kind of like an infant, where they can learn how to speak a language because they're really passionate. They're really trying to communicate. They're really eager to learn. And I think that's where people who are passionate have the greatest ability. And that's why I was asked them, what do they like to do?
Charles, I got a question. Actually, it's two questions in one, and this is more geared towards the viewers who might be watching. So, first question is there a shortage of the cybersecurity professionals right now? What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, I love this question. There's actually not a shortage of people. There is a shortage of money. So in school, when we were teaching, they used to always say that there's a shortage of students and staff. There's really not. There's a shortage of money. Even when I got approached by an aeronautical company, which I will not name, I was chased for like 3 or 4 months for trying to apply and get the job there. I already talked to their corporate HR department. They're like, look, yeah, we have a rec open, but there's no money to pay you. If you want to work for free, great, but there's no money to pay you. Yes, we have the requisitions open. There's no money behind it, but they're open. So what we see today is the same thing. It's like we have the requisitions open, but there's no money behind those requisitions to fill those positions at the moment. There's a lot of people, I guess you want to say, window shopping. And it's kind of sad because it's a little bit misleading in a lot of different things. But I've talked about this on a different podcast actually about how they do window shopping more so than they probably should do, and that actually helps them pad some of their financial numbers. But aside from that, tangent, there's not a shortage of people. There's a shortage of money and revenue to pay the people.
Okay, thank you, Charles. And the second question is, I know you gave us an example of cases in which people approached you and asked you, "Can I get into cybersecurity?" You said, "Yeah, you sure can, right?" But for those who want to get into cybersecurity, would you say that they need like a special trade, either be it personality trait or professional? So what do people need to have in order to excel and succeed in cybersecurity?
This is going to sound a little bit ironic, but the only thing that you really need to have to exceed or to excel in cybersecurity is just passion and desire. If you want to be the best, if you want to do the job, those type of things, those type of personality traits are going to make it so no matter what happens or what obstacles that you face, you're going to be able to overcome them. And it's not a matter of being able to program, a Windows operating system or Linux operating system from scratch and be able to do it in a day. It's a matter of team building. You've got the whole team building skills and team building exercises that you go through, but it all stems down from passion and drive. And that's why I used to ask my students, and like, what do you like to do? Because I already knew that whatever they were passionate about, they were going to be perfect. They were going to be flawless in, because they're going to have that drive to be the best at whatever they were doing in cybersecurity or in any other walks of life that they chose. So I would always tell somebody that if you chase it for the money, it's a very short-lived lifespan. If you chase it because it's something you love to do, then you will make a career out of it. And that's the way I view it, and that's the way it seemed to play out. Because what happens is cybersecurity is a very cyclical cycle. As you see the markets right now, everyone's panicking because the CISO stopped spending money, but they didn't really stop spending money. They stopped buying what's shiny. What that caused is all the cybersecurity vendors to stop spending money because they think the sky's falling. Then all these people get laid off. So then you really have to do something that you're passionate about, so you know how to really weather those tough times and really go through the industry as it's going through its changes and it's reshaping itself.
Thank you so much again, Charles. So wait, we're coming up on time. We're approaching wrap up. So I'm going to pass on the mic to you for final questions, please.
Yeah, you talked about money being tight, that it's not quite there when it's needed. I have been around companies that have had major breaches, and it's amazing how much money becomes available when there's the breach, right? They will throw plenty of money at it. Tell me a little bit about what you would say to an executive that is, maybe they haven't been breached, maybe they haven't had a ransom attack, and they're treating their security budget light, like you said. What would you say to those without, there's plenty of fear mongering, but it's also way more happening that's in the press because it's something people don't want to share in the press. Can you, as a professional, can you tell me what percentage of companies are actually experiencing these, whether major breaches or even minor breaches?
So I can tell you from my own experience personally, there are a lot of companies that will experience some type of attack or some type of breach, and they will either deny it or they'll sweep it under the rug like it never happened. And then, there are some companies that do have proper due diligence where they're not affected. So there's also that aspect of it. But to address your other part of the question, how do I address a company that's a little bit light on the budget? I did study FAIR, and I went through the FAIR Institute for understanding how to actually, tangibly put dollars and cents or quantify the dollars and cents values to a breach of certain issues. And being in finance myself, it makes it easier if you say, like, hey, look, if all our crown jewels, like all this PII gets leaked, then basically use everything because your company's now bankrupt type of scenario. So if you have the ability to tie some type of value to the information you're trying to protect, it becomes a lot more sensible. And that's ultimately what happens in a breach, right? Because when you have a breach, you already know that, like, oh, all my PII is gone. If this gets massive or it gets spread out to everybody, we're going to lose billions of dollars, depending on if it's a publicly traded company, or we're going to lose the entire company, depending if it's smaller. So now they have a real sense of value. And that's really what's missing in the boardroom when the CISOs are explaining it to the other folks, is they're missing the ability to communicate the business value or the business risk correctly to sometimes technical, but mostly non-technical folks who actually write the checks and they control the budgeting. So it's really critical to communicate the value of what you're protecting and why it's valuable and what the risk is and what it's going to cost the company if you don't mitigate that risk. Because at the end of the day, we're still responsible for mitigating the risk, even though we're not the ones actually doing it. We're just advising on it, which is kind of ironic.
Thanks. That's great response.
All right. So, Charles, we are, unfortunately, we're coming up on time. So we need to wrap it up. And the only thing left for me to do is thank you big time for being with us on the show today. And if anyone watching wants to get hold of Charles, you can do that at the email address down below. And also, of course, it's Charles P at CISOevents.com. And then also on their company website, which is CISOevents.com, of course. And of course, how to get a hold of Charles on LinkedIn, it's right there. You can see that down below. So with this being said, thank you so much again, Charles. Thank you, Wade. And please stay with us as we go off the air. And Wade, about upcoming, there are several upcoming interviews, but we need to confirm the topics that are going to be shared. But please keep an eye on upcoming events. Most likely by first thing tomorrow and onwards. It's right there on the website, techleadersunplug.com, and upcoming. So keep an eye for that. And this being said, again, thank you, Wade. Thank you, Charles, and see you next time. Right here on Tech Leaders Unplugged, Monday through Friday, 9:30 a.m. Pacific. Thank you.